morning and welcome to Nesta's Tools for Rapid Recovery event in collaboration with The Big Issue and the Recession Alliance. I'm Andrea and I've had the pleasure of leading the Rapid Recovery Challenge with a brilliant team of colleagues and partners. And we're so pleased to have so many people here today. In the audience, we have representatives from a wide range of organizations, including local councils, food banks, housing associations, banks, community charities, and more. We have an array of speakers lined up, but a quick note that if any of you in the audience also want to be a part of the conversation, we encourage you to take to Twitter with your comments and opinions using the hashtag #RapidRecoveryTools. So the Rapid Recovery Challenge launched in September 2020 as a response to COVID-19 with funding from Nesta, JP Morgan, the Department for Work and Pensions, and Money and Pensions Service, and has been run by Nesta Challenges, Nesta's Challenge Prize unit. A Rapid Recovery was set up to identify and scale tools that improve access to jobs and money for those hardest hit by the economic shock resulting from COVID, including people on lower incomes, people in insecure work, and younger workers. Over the past 6 months, the challenge has been supporting 14 semi-finalist teams, and just a few weeks ago, our judging panel had the difficult job of selecting 6 finalists who will work to scale their solutions over the coming months and vie to be named one of 2 overall challenge winners this September. So today's event is about announcing those 6 finalist innovators of the Rapid Recovery Challenge, and also about sharing with all of you here in this virtual room how their tools can be used to support the communities you work closely with. So on today's agenda, first we'll hear from Nesta's CEO, Ravi Gurumurthy, who will explore current jobs and finance landscape, announce the 6 finalist innovators. Then we'll hear from the innovators themselves and people who have used and been impacted by the finalist tools. We'll then hear from Lord John Bird, co-founder of The Big Issue, on why these themes and innovations are close to him and his organization. And finally, we'll go into 2 panel discussions, one on jobs and one on finances, where we'll have a range of voices with different points of view talking about the jobs and finance landscape, the 6 finalist tools, and how we can get those tools to the people who they could help most. So as I said, today is about announcing the 6 finalist Rapid Recovery Challenge teams, but also about letting you all know how their tools can be used to support the community of people you work with. And to help this, today also marks the launch of the Rapid Recovery Network, and we're very excited that so many of you have already signed up to be network members, so thank you so much. Being a member of the network means that over the next 4 months, if you think the tools you hear about today will be useful and applicable to your audiences and communities, Nesta will support you in either referring people to the tools or in promoting the tools to your audiences. After the event, we'll share more information about next steps for network members and how to join the network for anyone else who'd like to sign up. And with that, I'll now hand over to Nesta CEO, Ravi.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and welcome to everybody to this event. As Andrea mentioned, I'm really pleased that so many of you can join us, particularly in trying to help push this over the next 6 months. We've got a great lineup, as Andrea mentioned. We're hosting this in conjunction with The Big Issue's Recession Alliance, and we'll be hearing from Sir John Bird later. When we started this process, this Nesta Rapid Recovery Challenge back in September 2020, it was already pretty clear that the economic fallout and the hit on personal finances and jobs was going to be substantial. And I think we've got a clearer picture on that now. We know that around 800,000 people were made redundant during the pandemic. And we know that actually the impact was disproportionately felt in certain groups. So people who were, for instance, in low-paid jobs already, 1 in 20 of those workers has fallen out of the job market each quarter since the pandemic struck, equivalent to about 250,000 workers across Britain, compared with 1 in 50 for those on higher wages. We also know that disabled people, people from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, people on low pay, were all also disproportionately affected. This has also led to big concerns about money and future careers. So we know we've done some polling and looked at this, and it's about 27% of people state that they are terrified about their financial future, and 1 in 5 say that their finances won't recover for many years. Our research also suggests that about nearly 1 in 5 are accessing food banks or debt advice or benefits for the very first time, equating to about 9 million people across the UK. From a career perspective, this is also forcing people to think about their longer term prospects. So nearly a quarter of the population say they are being forced to change the sector they work in due to declining job opportunities. And that figure rises to about a third when you look at young people. So there is a huge need that this challenge is speaking to. The need first to find new paths to employment, to enable people to find the skills and opportunities that they need to thrive and be linked to live job opportunities. And there's also a need to help people maximise the income that they have and understand what sources of financial help they are available to them. And that's been the two strands of the challenge prize that we've run. About 5 months ago, we chose the semi-finalists, 14 semi-finalists. And for the last few months, they've been working on trying to get their tools fit for purpose, making tweaks and adjustments, and working on plans to get them to scale. And last month, they submitted their strategies and reports to a panel of experts, and some of whom you'll hear from today, who deliberated on which of those teams could rise to the challenge of scaling to 10,000 people by September this year. And scale is a big part of this challenge prize. Sometimes when we do challenge prizes, we're really focused just on the innovative product. On this one, given that it's speaking to the COVID challenge and the urgency of that, we have set a big goal for this whole rapid recovery challenge. That is, we want to help 1 million people access innovative tools by 2023. And that's why this focus on scaling and scaling plans has been a big part of what the semi-finalists have been doing in the last 4 months. There are some really interesting themes I think you'll notice when you hear from the finalists. Most are reaching audiences that are not well catered for by mainstream help, like homeless people or disabled people. There's a big focus on being really user-centric and getting under the skin of what people's needs and aspirations are, particularly from certain client groups. Many of them are using technology to provide low-cost help at scale, but also maintaining that relationship, that human connection that is critical to building trust and getting people to engage. And as I said, a big focus on how you can actually make this simple enough to actually ramp up and scale quickly. In a moment, we will hear from the finalists themselves, but for the next, I just want to say about between now and September, the next stage of the process, we're really focusing on how these products can get to a wider market, how they can get into the hands of thousands of people. And critical to that, as Andrea mentioned, is the Rapid Recovery Network, which is something we've convened to support this challenge and now has about 70 members in it from all over the country. And these are organisations that we hope will have direct access to all the tools and enable them to be put into the hands of as many people as possible. As well as the network, we've also engaged 3 key organisations, Do It Now, who will help innovators to reach Black communities across the UK, Youth Federation, who will target specifically young people, and The Big Issue, through their Ride Out Recession Alliance and network, will help to reach wider audiences, including large employers, banks, and charities. So in a moment, you'll not just only hear from the 6 finalists, but actually hear about them from 6 different people who across the UK have already benefited and used the actual tools. And these are just 6 stories, 6 lives that have been impacted by the tools that we're supporting. Between now and September, so around 150 days, it's our aim to hear 60,000 stories like the ones you're just about to hear. That's what we need to do. We can't do it alone. The innovators themselves can't do it alone. We require this network that we've gathered today to help grow these tools and get them into as many people as possible. So I want to thank you all in advance for all the help you've given already, but also what you're going to do in the next 4 or 5 months to get these tools to market. And with that, I'm going to allow us to introduce the 6 finalist rapid recovery teams and their solutions.
Beam is a social enterprise that crowdfunds job training for homeless people and supports them into stable paid work. So we currently work with people who are either currently homeless, they're recently homeless in the past 12 months, or at risk of becoming homeless. And the services and tools we provide help people get back into stable, independent work. And at Beam, we think there's two things that are really important. The first is opportunities, and the second is support. So really giving people that support and confidence to sort of get back into independent work.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a successful Beam user. I achieved my job in being a youth support worker, thanks to Beam. So thank you, Beam. Before the pandemic, I was in a retail job and then that closed down. So I thought I needed something to help me get back into work. And I was referred to Beam, who helped me out and helped me get a job successfully. I think the standout feature is the tons of support from Beam and the other campaigners on Beam's website. You know that it's mainly all about you and your experience. So every small thing that they do, it's a high successful chance of you actually getting the job that you want. Design of Beam is quite easy to use, mainly because it's got that personal touch, so you can get in touch with other campaigners. I've already raised my funding, so it'd say 100%, and it would have my story. And as I'm interested in a youth support worker, it would just show me the pros and cons of what a support worker does. It would help me do a CV template, applying for jobs online, being interview ready. It gave me positive impact, and I would easily refer Beam to anybody else. And it's just helped me gain control back my life, and I knew what to do now.
Hi, I'm Jane Hatton and I run Even Break. We designed the tool for disabled people who are looking for work and need support in doing that. But it can literally be anything from, can you have a quick look at this CV because I'm applying for a job, to I have no idea what kind of career I want or what my skills are, and a lot of intense support. And it's absolutely geared around the needs of that individual. And I think that's the feedback we've had from candidates is we've never really seen this before.
Hi, I'm Natasha and I'm a user of Even Break. I've always wanted to get into work straight after uni, but as I say, even in terms of university, they tried to supply me with employment support in terms of careers advice, but it wasn't really tailored to people with disabilities. When you have a disability, a lot of the schemes that are sort of available and open that are obvious are quite patronising, and then not really geared to helping support you do what you want. It's more rather what you'll fit into.
The Career Hive is basically an online platform and it offers a range of different support services to disabled candidates. They can search on our job board for jobs which are with employers who are keen to attract disabled candidates. We have access to the careers coaches themselves, so people can have one-to-one coaching, which could be anything from a review on their CV perhaps for a particular job they're going for, and then if they get through to interview they might come back, can I do some interview prep?
You can tell they've got connections with organisations who want to employ people with disabilities. So you're already sort of creating links to other places where there are possibilities. It's just so great to be able to be guided by people that actually know from experience of possibly their own experience, but also experience of guiding other people.
So the tool is for current students and recent graduates, where they can gain industry experience that's relevant to what they're studying, and they can access that really quickly. They can get paid, and it helps them with their career prospects upon graduation. It was really important for us to design the tool in a way that made it really easy for interns to showcase their value to employers. We've had a lot of interns that go into a micro internship, their values are realised instantly and they're offered full-time roles, so we're actually helping them gain full-time work.
So I'm Josie. I've just finished a master's in marketing with digital marketing, and then my university showed me this website and I thought, okay, this is great, I can do paid work that will build up my experience. Use Chapter is the very safe place for you to test out your skills. or even try something new. Businesses on there are willing to give you the opportunity to show that you know how to do what you have been trained at university to do. So I signed up, filled in my profile, went onto the main page that has all the jobs, had a look and said, this one here looks good for me. I said, that sounds great, let's have a chat. We had a chat, they offered me the job. I did a quick right to work check with UDrafter, and then I started working. I put in my hours onto UDrafter. A few days later or the next week, I suddenly got a paycheck. I was like, oh, that's nice. And I just, it's like rinse, repeat. I just kept doing that. Here's me thinking, okay, let's start applying for stuff, and maybe in a month or 2 months I'll have a job, when it was just suddenly like, you've got work now. So you learn how to talk to so many different people, and you just feel a lot less scared about it. UDrafter in a way helps you with that kind of overcoming that fear. You learn how to be a professional, and my CV looks great, and I'm a lot more developed than I was when I just came out of university.
So Turn to Us research has shown that 11 million people are now in a financially precarious situation because of COVID-19. So the digital grants platform is for people in financial hardship so that they can get money out to them when they need it as quickly as possible. And it's for grant giving organisations to make their processes quicker and more secure so that they can spend their time on the things that matter most, supporting people in financial hardship.
Hi, I'm Claire and I'm a user of Turn to Us. So it's not really possible for me as a single parent to look for work when I don't know when the schools are going to be back. And when I lived in Edinburgh, there was a lot more employment opportunities there because it's a massive city. But unfortunately, in October last year, I was made redundant from my job. After Christmas, the bills just started mounting up. So I went onto the Turn to Us website. They were a complete lifeline for me after Christmas. I was able to pay off some of my debt, and it just made me sleep a little bit easier at night. It just made a massive difference. I'm really basic with computers. So when I went on Turn to Us, it was really bright, friendly. The questions were basic. It then suggested that there might be charities that I could go on. So it was literally like 4 days or something. The first person contacted me and just said, could I send them like 3 pieces of information? So he sent it on to like a caseworker that looks at things in more detail and asked me if I could link up with this financial system that logs onto my bank account just to basically check my details. And I think by the Thursday or Friday of the following week, I'd had an answer saying that I was approved and it was paid into my bank by the Wednesday of the following week. So it was literally 2 weeks from start to finish. For anybody else out there, if I can do it, anybody can do this. Like I say, me and technology do not go. Well, I would just say, look, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. It's just in the name, really. Turn to Us. Do you know what I mean? There's somebody else there that you can help with.
Income Max Digital is a tool for anyone that's finding themselves in a difficult situation and worried about their money and their finances. And our tool can help you to maximise your income and get all of the money and services that you're entitled to. Billions of pounds of financial support goes unclaimed by people every year in the UK, and we want more and more people to get the help and support they need at a time that's best for them. Once they're registered with their account, they go straight into our digital service where they can start to talk to an advisor who will be allocated to them. This is an advisor who is trained on benefits, charitable grants, debt advice skills, and everything that that person will need to start to take control of their finances.
Hi there, I'm Raj and I'm an Income Max user. It was a unique bespoke package that they offered, which when every other light switches off, this is the shining light. I had a phone call from Lorraine from Income Max. She sort of did a quick assessment, took an overview of my situation and the knowledge this wonderful professional had. It was amazing. There was so much encouragement there to support me, guide me and assist me. The service is there for everyone who's struggling, who's unsure. It took a couple of minutes to sign up and the process for onboarding was really simple and easy to use. And it was just had 6 simple steps, and it takes you through the process. It allows you to kind of explain about your worries, and then it connects you to a service centre where you're actually talking to a human being, and that in itself is wonderful. There's just so many varieties of different methods of communicating and reaching out. Income Max, they were always honest with me and open with me. I was talking to a human being. It's a great tool, if you say, or Income Max it just shortens the road to the goal that you want to achieve.
Hasty, we're revolutionising the way people get paid to improve their financial health. We do that by giving them immediate access to the money as they earn it and providing the tools and education to help people better manage and control their finances. The great thing about Hasty and earned wage access is that it applies to everyone that's earning. It unites the entire workforce in that way. As soon as you've done that work, you've got out of bed and you've earned that pay, that's money's yours and you just have to wait to it. So it's a fantastically adaptable product that works for everyone and all organizations that employ people.
Hi, I'm Maria. I'm a user of Hefty. I'm from Venezuela. I'm living now in Bournemouth in the United Kingdom. I'm working in a bar at this moment, in a pub, in the hospitality industry. In total 8 months of the last year, I've been on furlough. Well, I started using Hefty with this last company that I've been working with, but especially with the pandemic, last year I've been using it a lot. And it's really helpful because sometimes I need some money before and I didn't have a credit card or anyone to borrow some money. So yeah, it's really made me some relief. Well, I think the app is really good. It's really easy to use, it's practical, it's effective, it's really quick. I sign up giving some details and then just creating your username and your password, and then you can get in. You can go to the history and the payment, so you can see like how many hours have you worked and how much money you got paid for it. And then in the main page of the app you can see how much money you can cash out. After you press that button of cash out, then you get the money within 5 minutes. We were discussing between all the colleagues and all the people around, and we think everyone has the right to cash out their wages before the end of the month.
Hi, my name is John Bird. I'm the joint founder of The Big Issue, which we founded 30 years ago this year. And we founded it in order to help people who were on the streets and who were getting into trouble because they might have had problems, mental health problems, drink problems, drug problems, and all that. And we started that to help people who already were homeless, who had been socially prepared by many occasions to fall into homelessness. I myself am ex-homeless, ex-offender, ex-user, and all sorts of stuff like that. And what I did was I took some of my own skills that I got to get me out of the streets, to get me out of crime, to get me out of wrongdoing. And I managed to work that into The Big Issue. Now, The Big Issue is a brilliant, brilliant invention. But what happens when COVID-19 comes along and suddenly You don't just have to worry about the vendors and what the vendors of the big issue are doing, people who are all struggling out of homelessness. It suddenly becomes obvious that there are hundreds of thousands of people who, through COVID-19 related poverty, will need to be supported. So you could say, in a sense, that we developed our initiative from not just the people who had manifested homelessness, but also the people who read the big issue. So we had to move on to people who may have had some kind of comfort, some kind of security over years and decades, and whose children were looking forward to a future, and then suddenly, bang, it's all over. And that is the most frightening thing I have ever encountered in my 75 years. This is the most frightening thing that we have to face. I have been trying to get the government to give us a roadmap out of this. The point is that it is cheaper for the Exchequer to keep people in their homes, to get people jobs, to get them trained, to move them on. It is much cheaper than doing the other thing, which is allowing them to slip into homelessness, allowing them to slip into temporary accommodation, allowing their children to become depressed and broken and disheartened. And in my opinion, this is certainly the biggest fight of my life and the biggest fight of the big issue. With that in mind, last April, we put together with Michelle, who is on with us today, with Michelle Simpson, we put together what we were calling the Ride Out Recession Alliance. And the Ride Out Recession Alliance was the dumbest thing you'd ever do, but also the most quintessential, shall we say. What a lovely word. And that was to convince the government they had to keep people in their homes, because even if you pay the rent or the mortgage and you give them some relief, that could be half the cost of allowing them to drift into homelessness and the psychological damage that could be passed down to their children. So RORA, Ride Out Recession Alliance, was a meeting of this campaign to keep people indoors, but also it was a meeting. We weren't going to leave it to the government or to anybody else. What we were going to do is put together an alliance of people who were committed to the idea of helping people in a mass homelessness prevention program, who could be skilled up while they were indoors, who could, if they've lost their job, then find the ways in which they can alleviate that situation and move themselves from the emergency. What has actually happened is the government has spent, and you can have a go or not, they have spent an enormous amount of money on emergency. They have yet to spend the money on recovery. And that is one of the things that we're pushing and driving forward, which is the idea that we have to move from emergency, support people in the emergency, but we need recovery money, which must come from a different budget. The budget has to come from the operating costs of the government, because the government, as I said earlier, you will end up having to pay the Chancellor of Exchequer will end up having to pay if people slip into homelessness. When I was in homelessness or in the prison system and all that, I was costing 3 times what it cost to put somebody through Eton and Harrow. So the poshest school was cheap in terms of what they spent on me. Homeless people can cost anywhere between 20 and 100,000 pounds a year. Money that's lost that should be spent on helping people to prevent them falling into homelessness. Anyway, so that's really why we're very, very interested in Nestor. I've got a list here of all the wonderful the tools, the intervention tools, the financial recovery spread, income max, which we've just seen earlier, turn to you, hasty, or hasty, is it Scottish? If it's Scottish, you'll be hasty. So forgive me, I used to live in Scotland. And even break. So, so what you've got and sorry, there's somebody else there. No, that's job recovery. Forgive me, I can't even read my own notes. Anyway, so you got the financial recovery. Brilliant. I love what I saw on the film earlier. You've then got job recovery, which is even break and drafter, not drifter, and also Beam Hub. Now, these are the tools that you can use, the semi-finalists are offering. These are the kind of tools we need to help people to not slip into the treacle of homelessness and social dislocation and all that. I'm very, very pleased to be associated with Nesta. I've known Nesta for many years and I've done stuff with them. They're a brilliant umbrella or whatever they call themselves. Thank you for giving the small amount of time to listening to this old geezer. I'm in the House of Lords, by the way, to dismantle poverty. I'm not there simply to play the game of pretending that I'm helping people here, there, and the other. I want to destroy poverty. And one of the ways that we're working at the moment is to try and get rid of poverty and so that people can move on and have a fuller life. That's the end of me. I'd like to introduce the splendid Michelle Simpson, who came to us last year and has done a sterling job on building RORA, the Ride Out Recession Alliance, and working with our partnership in Nesta around jobs and around training. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening to me. You're doing a splendid job. Let's all work together. There is no solution unless we have combination, unless we all work together to get rid of the monster of poverty created by COVID-19. Thank you.
Hi all, Thanks for joining us, and thanks for John for explaining maybe briefly why we have joined the Nesta Challenge on rapid recovery. Just to set a little bit more scene around what we're doing with the Ride Out Recession Alliance. At the big issue, as John said, we want to do something about the poverty that we're facing as a result of COVID. When we launched RORA in summer last year, we were looking at numbers that were being predicted of people being impacted, of potentially up to 500,000 people becoming homeless as a result of COVID, around about 250,000 people being unemployed by springtime this year. And as we've already heard from Ravi, we know that actually 800,000 people have been made redundant as a result of COVID. So the numbers that we were facing into were huge, and the shock of COVID really has called for a radical change in approach to how we're looking at some of these issues. And so the big issue decided that they really wanted to do something about this. We've always been about a hand up, not a handout. And so we've been really focusing in on how the big issue can, as John said, build an alliance of partners and find solutions and tools and services that really try and help those hundreds of thousands of people that are being impacted as a result of COVID. So we're really, really pleased to be part of the Rapid Recovery Challenge and to work with the 6 innovators that have been selected. But my specific focus and some of the stuff that we've been doing more recently within RORA has been focused around employment and training, as John said. So I will be leading the panel, which will start shortly, and we'll be talking to the panel around that, which I will introduce as we swap over to that panel. So I guess that's it from me on RORA, and we'll shortly be joining the panelists for some questions. So the panelists that we've got today, we've got Fiona Aldridge, who's the Director of Policy and Research at Learning and Work Initiate. We've got Aisha, who is Head of Service Delivery and Employer Engagement. We've got Sam Olsen, CEO from Movement to Work, and we've got Kira, who is the Commercial Director at Page Group. Welcome all to the panel. The panel today is going to cover 3 areas. So we are going to focus on low-paid, insecure work and young people. So I'm going to, if we're ready to go, I'm going to launch into some of the questions that we've got and open that up, if that's okay. So maybe Kira and Aisha, you could answer this question for us. So what's unique about the impact of COVID-19 on the challenge target audience? So those in low paid work, insecure work, and who may have lost their jobs due to COVID, or young people. And what do you think it's done to the trajectory? Can you talk about the areas and the people who have been impacted most?
Shall I kick off? So I think Ravi mentioned this earlier in his introduction, that the pandemic has disproportionately affected women in work, people of colour, and those in kind of low paid work. I think there's a statistic out there that part-time jobs fell by 70% in the first 11 weeks of the pandemic. And so, this in itself, doesn't aid with things like the gender pay gap that's being looked at, that was starting to make some form of closure. That's only going to increase at the moment. But I think one of the key things that's been impacted on the audience is kind of a digital poverty. which isn't necessarily spoken about a huge amount. Schools went online, those in employment went online where they could. And that's all accepting that, one, people have technology in order to undertake their schoolwork, undertake their work, but also Wi-Fi bandwidth. It's supposedly okay in the big cities, but in the more rural and remote areas. And, this is huge, I think, and will have an impact, not just in the near future, but moving further on, because individuals won't have necessarily been able to catch up as much. And I think, unfortunately, the trajectory, unless there is an input, both from a funding perspective, but actually from a hardware perspective as well, unless that happens sooner rather than later, then that trajectory, I think, will only, unfortunately, take longer.
Great, thanks, Kira. Aisha, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. From the perspective of young people in particular, especially those from less advantaged backgrounds, they've had the double whammy of both education and employment being affected at the same time, which then has a compounding effect when you think about other socioeconomic factors. And so the work that we do at the brokerage, we work with young people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, 16 to 24 years old. And we've seen a significant variance in the quality of the online education that they've received, to Kira's point. But also the cancel of exams disproportionately impacted those from less advantaged backgrounds. And 64% of the young people we surveyed in our organisation said that they did not get the exam grades that they expected. So when you then think about the impact that then has had, a lot of them have not been able to access the apprenticeships that they expected, the higher education that they expected. And then from a jobs perspective alone, the dilemma of not having the work experience that they need to get a job, and then the work experience they need to find work experience has been heightened because internships have been cancelled, entry-level roles have been cancelled. And so at the moment, what we've got is this increased competition where, again, because of structural inequality, the less advantaged young people are always going to lose out in that kind of situation. And ordinarily, we would be advising people, okay, don't worry, you haven't got necessarily the internship that you wanted for your next step, but rely on your part-time work and, really maximise that opportunity. But hospitality, leisure and retail, where these young people would normally be, those jobs, of course, have not been as available, and there's increased competition again for those jobs from workers of all ages. And so understandably, young people are incredibly stressed, incredibly uncertain about their future, which is that now also having a huge impact on their mental health.
That's great. Thanks, Aisha. Sam, Fiona, did you want to add anything to that one?
I think they're really important and powerful points, aren't they? So we've done a lot of work over the last year looking at who's been most affected, so who have lost their jobs. And of course, it's those who are in low paid work, have fewer qualifications, who are in insecure work that have been affected most. So we've not only got to get back to where we were, but think about how we build on that so people aren't so vulnerable. Part of the challenge of this crisis is that it's been quite a sectoral impact on the labour market. So if you normally, when you lose a job, you often try and go and find something that's quite similar to what you've done before, because that's where you have experience and skills. But in this crisis, that not only is your job gone, but the jobs that are very similar to yours have gone as well. And so people need more careers advice. They need to think about the skills that they've got and training and developing new skills. And it's a much harder challenge to think about moving around the labour market rather than just finding a job that's very similar to yours. And so people really do need assistance, and that's what this challenge is all about.
Great, thanks, Fiona. Sam, did you want to add anything?
I just think I'd pick up on the mental health point, actually. So what we are starting to see is businesses beginning to plan for the second half of the year, opportunities opening up, a lot of work experience opportunities, a lot of apprenticeship programs, and obviously hospitality and retail starting to see opportunities. And we're pushing businesses a lot to stop talking about 1 to 2 years experience. It's illogical in retail and hospitality. Their businesses have been closed for the last 1 to 2 years, but it's almost that's the standard pattern that they have been going for. So working with them to say, look, you're going to have to work with the labour market where it's at the moment. The other side of that, though, on the mental health point, is the young people who are furthest from the labour market are those who live in communities who have been most affected by this crisis, by this pandemic, and are still very scared of going out, actually, and scared of taking jobs in retail and hospitality. So I think there is a real job for us to all be doing about how we inspire young people to think about these as opportunities and help them with their own mental health journey back into the workplace.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Okay. Next question, I'm going to come to you, Fiona, if that's okay with this one to start with. So how can you see these 3 finalist tools being used by people and communities across the UK?
Thank you. It's a really good question. So it was a great privilege to be part of the judging panel, and there's a much larger set of really great ideas, and I'm very excited about these particular 3. I'm excited about them in their own particular right, but also because I think they do very different things, and so there's potential to just through even just these 3 innovations to make a real impact. And there's some, I guess they're solutions to issues that have become even more important during the crisis, but actually were there beforehand. And they're big kind of intractable issues. And I think what we know about big intractable issues is that innovation is really important, but it's not sufficient on its own. We really need to give personalised support alongside these tools to really be able to help people with very difficult solutions. And I think that's what's exciting about the network, is that we can take some great tools, but also have that personalised support to make a difference. And so I think what's really exciting is the kind of tools around supporting people furthest away from the labour market, supporting people with disabilities. And we know we had a massive disability employment gap even before this crisis, but also really excited about the UDrafter idea for kind of micro internships, and so that we're not creating a situation where young people are coming out of education and then only being able to get experience if they can afford to do that for free. And as Aisha already mentioned, we have young people who've had a disrupted education, but actually even given that, they have so much less work experience than previous generations. And this is a really exciting opportunity to be able to make a difference. So I think there's just, I'd really encourage people, find out about the tools, delve into them, but think about how you can build them into your practice and the difference that it can make with young people and the adults that you work with, to give them the chances that actually without them, they really might not have.
Great, thank you. And Sam and Aisha, how do we reach and or engage with the target audience? How do you think we best do that?
Would you like me to take that one first?
Yeah.
Our audience at Movement to Work is very much more a business-to-business audience, because we're very focused on inspiring businesses to create opportunities. But what's really interesting once you create the demand through the businesses is how you then, as you say, inspire people to learn about the experience, know about the opportunity and what that creates. We've been working with a lot of grassroots local organisations, because actually there's something about trusted adults in this space, particularly for us when we're working with young people, of simply broadcasting, whether or not it's Unilever, Sage Foundation, Movement to Work. Actually, we don't have a voice with young people, and it needs to be very much what we see as most effective practices, where it's a trusted adult that shares the opportunities and talks to young people about what those opportunities can give. And also a growing number of the DWP job coaches are really starting to engage with what the opportunities are and sharing those with young people.
Great, thanks Sam. Aisha?
So we actually ask young people that we work with this question all the time, and they keep on telling us that we're on social media, but we're not on Facebook, we're not on Twitter, we're barely on Instagram, but we are on TikTok. And a lot of organisations are yet to embrace the platform because they don't really understand it. They think it's all about dance moves and funny videos, but there's a huge misconception as to how young people actually use it. And in fact, they're using it for things like jobs, career and money advice. And so it's important to really meet them where they are. And I think from an engagement perspective, I think young people also really want a tribe. And so if the feedback we get time and time again is that they love meeting other people or having the opportunity to meet other people that are going through similar situations as themselves, that are also overcoming the challenges similar to themselves. And that community is something that keeps them really engaged and wanting to do more around any of the opportunities that are available.
Brilliant. Thanks, Aisha. Kira, I'm going to come to you first with the next one. What do you think end users, need that they don't have, perhaps, and kind of what are you hearing within Page Group? People asking for. You're on mute, Kira.
Excellent, always one. So it's difficult because end users want so much, and there are so many individuals out there that need support and need help, and end users don't necessarily know. Do they spread themselves thinly and try and help everyone, or do they target a specific vulnerable group and help them? And I think the one key thing that we've come out, we recently conducted a survey, and of the organisations that responded, 43% came back and said post-pandemic, diversity and inclusion is going to be hugely on their agenda and is going to be hugely important. And I think, yes, it's a moment in time, but we need to make sure that that's sustainable moving forward and working, we work very closely with those end users as to how they can increase their diversity of their organisation. But it isn't just about the diversity of their organisation, it is very much about the inclusion and ensuring that the onboarding of different individuals, is kind of the same, that everyone feels welcome, everyone feels that they've got access to everything that they need in order to do the job that they've been hired to do. And so it's that piece at the moment around diversity and inclusion that end users are talking to us most about, and which is where we are partnering, and we are partnering with one of the panelists in Even Break in terms of their innovation and their tool in order to reach a wider audience from a diversity perspective.
That's great. Thanks, Kira. Anybody else want to add to Kira's comments? Fiona?
I think thinking about those people we really want to support through these tools, people want a job and they want a sustainable job and they want a good job, but often just don't know where to go to get one. And, in the current context, it's even harder, isn't it? So I think there's great things that the tools offer is connections with employers who are looking to employ people, so that it's not just about some information or some training, but it is real connections, perhaps in contexts where they don't have those networks themselves. And then the right information, the right support, the right advice to help them get to that job, knowing what skills they have, what skills employers are looking for, how to develop them in between, and the kind of practical support that would help them get from one point to the other, because it can just be really overwhelming, can't it? And it's great to see that so much support and so much innovation is being tailored to try and help people. And I think this is where these finalists really come into their own in helping people with that whole journey through from where they are at the minute and the challenges and the realities of that into really good jobs. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those stories of the journeys that people undertake.
Great, thanks, Fiona. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question, if that's okay. So, Aisha, I'm going to go to you first with this one. So, what can we do to support the target audiences with employment and jobs and the impact of COVID-19, in the long term? So, I guess picking up on kind of, what we've already covered a little bit, but what do you think, we can do to support them?
I think here it's really worth reiterating some of the points we've already raised in terms of it's really important to support people with their mental health. People are not going to be able to thrive in their search for employment and in their roles if their mental health is not where it needs to be. And I think also on the point of digital poverty, I think we need to factor in that as the world moves towards a more hybrid model of working, and we're starting to mandate that some people work from home even just a couple of days of the week. That doesn't necessarily work for everybody, especially, again, from our perspective, thinking about young people from less advantaged backgrounds, but I guess all people from less advantaged backgrounds, because if you're living in cramped conditions, if you're living with younger children or younger siblings, if you're sharing a bedroom with your sibling, or if you live in shared accommodation, that is not ideal working conditions. If you don't have high-speed internet, if you don't have space for things like a desk and a chair, that is going to cause significant problems for you and a lot of stress and anxiety. And for younger people in particular who need to learn soft skills and working norms, if they're new to the labour market, and many of those skills are really picked up by osmosis, by observing and copying other people, and that's going to be a lot harder. And even just asking for help is going to be a lot harder. So again, it goes full circle back to the mental health issue, is that we have to really think about, and employers really need to think about, what mandating work from home actually does for people from less advantaged backgrounds and what that is potentially going to do to their mental health.
Yeah, and I guess it's difficult for employers at the moment to kind of understand, they're all going through these major changes, to understand what the future of work looks like kind of post-COVID. Sam, what are you seeing with movement to work?
So I would say we hold a bit of a breadth of employer responses to this at the moment. So I'm sure Marks and Spencer's wouldn't mind sharing with you. They obviously had to remain open in the stores, but their head office could have closed at the beginning. From the outset, they kept their building open but COVID secure, so hugely reduced capacity, clearly. But they have taken the approach of the building is open for staff when they want it, when they feel safe and when they need to use it. We've spoken already about young people and the impact on their mental health. There's also the real challenge for young people in intergenerational households and what that means to having an appropriate working environment. Safety, security really becomes an issue at that point. So we have at the other, probably more the more traditional banking, investment banking, consultancy type space. Those organisations are still firmly in the office is closed, you need to remain working at home. What we're hearing from young people though, who've been through our programmes, is a real desire to want to be in the workplace. For all the reasons that Aisha's mentioning there, we need to be really careful that we don't find ourselves in a situation where offices are being used by those people new to the workplace, new to a sector, and those more experienced colleagues who have a nice space to work at home are working at home. That is not the journey of inclusion that any business wants to be on at the moment. And I think the next 3 to 6 months, nobody's quite sure where this conversation's going at the moment, but we're going to have to tread a very fine line between ensuring that staff feel safe and comfortable returning to work, but also that we're creating inclusive work environments that particularly young people, those new to the labour market or new to a sector, feel comfortable in meeting colleagues in a safe environment.
Great, thanks, Sam. And Fiona, to what extent can tools and services impact outcomes for individuals? So, what's the scope here, and how can it affect system change?
It's a really, really interesting question. And one of the things I'm particularly mindful of is that for the 3 finalists, they are tackling issues that have been exacerbated during the pandemic, but were clearly there beforehand. So we had a disability employment gap. We had young people, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, that couldn't get the right work experience. And as John Bird talked about earlier, if you're homeless, then actually the support to get retraining and jobs is just really non-existent, and yet it is really good value for money. So I'm delighted in these 3 these 3 tools, and I think they can make a real difference, but when they're used by organisations who have really good connections, really understand their target group, really understand what they need, and can put that wider support around as well. So Aisha, she clearly understands the young people that she works with, and this tool, the UDrafter tool, could really help, but with that wider focus on how do we support young people with their wider issues, with their mental health, with a whole range of other things that are really critical in order to help them to get a job. So So I think it can really make a positive difference, but as part of a wider service and support and encouragement for those most affected.
Great, thanks Fiona. Aisha, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I completely agree, Fiona. And I think the one thing to really think about here is that with employability skills in particular, it does require some level of one-to-one advice that's tailored to the individual. If you think about CV review or interview practice. And so whilst these tools are absolutely fantastic and really, really needed, most organisations are not going to be able to meet all of the demand from people who really require that more individualised support. Had that been said, this is where innovation and technology really brings hope, because I think we can find solutions that are able to combine that individualised support at scale. And if employers are committed to being part of the solution, then I really do think we can achieve that systems change.
Yeah, I think that's right. And one of the advantages of tools is that it enables us to think about scale in a different way. So we've talked about personalised support and intensive support and how critical it is, but by its very nature, it's often small scale, and we need lots of people doing this in order to reach the vast numbers of people affected by COVID who need support. And one of the great potentials by having these innovative tools is that by combining technology and people to provide support, we get to reach far more. And we do need solutions at this time more than ever that help at mass and at scale because of the scale of the challenge. So I think that combination is really exciting.
Thanks, Fiona. So I'm just going to finish off. I'm just going to go around the panel, if that's okay. And I'm going to start with you, Kira. Just in your opinion, what challenges or interesting barriers do you think the innovators are likely to face in scaling their tools this summer?
I think, one, it's about choosing correct partners so that they can scale, and not just scale in the short term, as we've all discussed. This is about sustainability of helping the audience. So for me, it's ensuring that the partnerships are there and are there for the long term, and making sure that you're partnering with the best people to kind of increase the noise around everyone that's trying to help and associating themselves with these innovative tools.
Great, thanks, Kira. And what single piece of advice would you give them?
I think don't just look at big corporates. I think, it's very easy to, get a list of the FTSE and kind of target the ones that tend to sponsor big events. I would look at those that have got strong social value policies, who really believe in the work that the innovators are looking to do. And those growth organisations, those fast growth tech organisations that are really trying to establish themselves, I think is probably a good place to start. So that would probably be my advice.
Thanks, Kira. Sam, same questions to you.
Thank you. I'm going to build on what Kira was saying, first of all, on the don't just go for the big organisations. Actually, I'd encourage any of these in this startup phase looking to scale this summer, work with organisations that are already working with these big corporates. A corporate relationship to establish itself and get moving takes, in our experience, 12 to 18 months. And we're an organisation that's already quite established in this space. So there are so many charitable organisations that already have really strong partnerships with large corporates that would be more than happy to support the work that you're doing. So think about using us as an intermediary. Prince's Trust, Catch-22, Movement to Work, there's just so many of us. Think about how you use us, and we can help you with introductions, and we can help you facilitating the use and the scale of your products. The other thing I'd be saying to you is always start with the young person at the heart of what you're thinking and what the young person needs. What we see is where a business runs a program, if they run it without the wraparound support and that softer skills support being provided by an external provider, we get about a 35% conversion rate into a long-term job. Once we add that wraparound support in, add a youth outreach organisation, that zips up to a 75% conversion. So and it's because of the tailored support, that one-to-one being provided from the young person. And my final point would be to think about partnering with organisations that are doing something in the digital poverty space. We had a huge national conversation at the beginning of the year and the back end of last year that was all about school children must have access to tech in order to be able to engage with schooling and education. What about the young people who are looking for jobs? Has anyone who is in a job at the moment applied for a job any other way other than spending hours on that laptop? That's what you need to be able to do. The biggest provider of data for young people has had their offices closed for months. It was McDonald's. McDonald's provides more data to young people than anyone else. And they've been closed for a really long time. So think about partnering with organisations that will enable young people to be able to access the tools.
That's great. Thanks, Sam. We've run out of time, I'm afraid, so I hope that that's been really helpful for the innovators and for the audience, and we've had some great answers to the questions that we've had today. But now I'm going to hand over to Angela Clements, who's going to explore the finance side of what we're trying to do through the Rapid Recovery Challenge. Thanks all.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle, and all of the jobs and employment panel. It was so great to hear that awesome discussion. And we really hope that it struck a chord with some of you in the audience who are here, who are members of the network or thinking about joining up to the network, and gave you good ideas about how you could use these tools in your context. We've just had a little technical hitch, so you'll see that my name badge says Angela. Unfortunately, Angela, who is due to chair the finance side of the panel discussion today, hasn't been able to make it. So I am going to step in and do my very best job. So we're here today to discuss the other 3 tools on the Rapid Recovery Challenge. And these 3 tools are looking after the kind of access to money for those target audiences who have been hit by COVID. So just before we bring in the other panelists, I just wanted to give a little whiz around of the tools and just talk a little bit about why we're so excited to have these 3 tools as the finance side of the Rapid Recovery Challenge portfolio. So we've got Turn to Us, and we're really excited that Turn to Us is enabling charities to act more quickly and identify more clearly where funding can be most effective and transformational. They've been incorporating open banking into the grant application process and providing charities with more complete and rapid grant applications. They've turned grant applications into kind of a 2 to 3 month process. They've transformed that into a 2-week process, which means that people out there who need their money and need it fast to help smooth over those bumps that COVID has caused are able to do so super easily. We've also got Income Max, who have taken their super personalised service, which is full of heart, and they've added digital technology to mean that they can reach more and more people. They're able to help individuals to access money, to understand benefits and change their bills and make sure that they're able to keep afloat in these difficult times. And then we've got Hasty, who are doing amazing things for vulnerable workers, those in low paid and insecure work, and are helping them to be able to access their pay as they earn it. That means that there'll be no more kind of nasty bills that appear that send you into a spiral of debt. You can now draw down your pay and you'll be able to manage those bills. So now that I've garbled through that, I'll just invite my very experienced panel to join me. So we've got Phil Gossett of Nationwide, Emmanuel Asquo from the Iman Effect, we've got Ed Parker from Christians Against Poverty, and we've got Sophia Spence-Cheng from Money and Pension Service. So I'm really pleased to have you all here today. I think what we'll dive in with first is maybe a little bit more on the 3 finalist solutions. So I'm just kind of wondering, so we've got these 3 finalist tools. How can you see them being used across the country by people and individuals in the UK? I'll throw that out to anyone that wants to claim that question, really.
I'll start. So if there's estimates going that we're going from perhaps 12 million people living in financial difficulty pre-COVID to say 20 million now post-COVID, there's a lot of people that find themselves in a new situation. And those people, what they really need is they need support for where they are, and they need help out from the situation they find themselves in. The thing that excites me is that Income Max and Turn to Us are both designed to help build the buffer that people have to where they are and to increase the support for where they are. And then I like the fact that one of the problems when you're trying to get out of that situation is that it's a very bumpy ride. And I think what Hasty will do is to really help smooth that journey out for people. So I think there are 3 good tools, well-aimed tools at a good time.
Cool. And Sophia, from your kind of wider policy view, how do you see these really fitting into kind of the next six months of COVID response?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Comma, and I absolutely echo everything that Phil has just said about these tools. They look fantastic, and we've heard COVID being described as the great unequalizer. There's definitely unequal financial impact on certain groups of people and communities, particularly young people being one of them. And I think when it comes to young people, and with these tools, I think it's a great way to improve, financial capability going forward as well. And thinking about these tools as part of a sort of broader package of holistic support for young people and those who are most affected by the pandemic will be really, really key. I think with Hasty, for example, with income smoothing, obviously, that's a great way to support people at the moment through crisis. Similarly, Turn to Us and Income Max with income maximization, again, sort of a great way to support people through crisis at the moment. But one of the things I would say as well, sort of going forward and thinking in the long term, is around how are we supporting these people more broadly? What is their broader financial situation? We wouldn't want any sort of deeper underlying financial issues to be masked, with sort of quick solutions here and now. And I think thinking about that in the longer term will be really beneficial for those who are most impacted.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think there's a piece about kind of the journey that the end user goes on, and that these three tools kind of take them through different stages of recovery and can play a part in their lives at different stages of when they're struggling. Emmanuel, with your kind of contact with people through your financial advisor work and some of your recent kind of COVID focus, do you see these tools being quite useful?
Yes, definitely. I think these tools are something that people really need. As a financial advisor that focuses on people from lower incomes and people really trying to make the most of what they have, I think one of the big issues is, where do I turn to? Where do I go to? And even as a financial advisor, I think it's very difficult to know all the different benefits, what people qualify for. They seem to be changing on a daily basis. And so to have apps and have technology where people who are very technology aware can now go onto apps and use these tools in order to help their situation, I think it becomes easy. And if we make it simple for people, then that will definitely help, especially in times when people are afraid, are uneasy and don't know what's happening next. I think, it's almost, for me, I see it as a way of empowering people in a time where they feel disempowered, in a time where they feel that they are forgotten and they are not important, especially if you've been made redundant or you've lost your job, which you may have been there for a long period of time, and all of a sudden you're told you're not needed. You now feel unimportant, unempowered, and these apps can really empower you to get back up, keep going, and give you the money you need or the financial support you need in that time to support your family and yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what you touched on there about the kind of user experience and how simple these tools are, it's the last thing you want when you're going through these kind of financial difficulties and struggles in your own life, is to enter a website and which button do I click? And that's something that's really great about these tools, is that each of them are really catered to end users, and they've really thought through their kind of user process. There's a few buttons often on a lot of them. Some of them just have one button. So yeah, they're really simplifying that process. And Ed, from your work with Christians Against Poverty, you can see these kind of being taken up quite widely.
Yeah, I have to say what you were saying there about accessibility and simplification of tools. For us as an organisation, we work with people who, broadly speaking, struggle with technology. And in some cases are kind of more on the digitally excluded end of the spectrum. So it was really encouraging to see some of the user testimonies and stories in the videos reflecting the kinds of clients who we'd expect to work with, finding these tools easy to use, engaging. I really liked the simplicity of the application process that was put in on the Turn to Us side of things. I thought that was fantastic. And yeah, it's just really encouraging to see people taking the challenges around the digital divide seriously as they start to kind of look at these responses. So yeah, very, very encouraging. And yeah, as others have said, the tools that we're looking at here, I think, are things that can make a real difference. And I really appreciate some of the innovative thought that has gone into addressing some of the societal challenges that we're facing as COVID accelerates some of the trends that we've been seeing in the debt advice sector over recent years.
Yeah, and just leading on from that, Ed, and I suppose to take a step back, so we've kind of talked about, yeah, we think that these tools can be taken up, but can we just kind of revisit where these audiences are now at, where people are at? So, you know, it's COVID has moved a whole different tranche of people into circumstances that they never thought they would find themselves in, as well as exacerbating circumstances for those who were already kind of struggling. So can we just kind of recap on what it's done to people's trajectory and what's the outlook for the next kind of 4 to 5 months or over the next year?
Yeah, as Phil already mentioned, the kind of broader industry trends and things we're expecting across the industry is a big increase in those experiencing problems with debt and money management. And I'd say particularly for us at Christians Against Poverty, the early signs that we've started to see is a shift in those seeking help with debt. And traditionally, we'd see people waiting for a period of time, probably 18 months, 2 years on average for our client base. And more recently, we're starting to get comments and stories through from those who take our inquiries on our new inquiry line, saying actually the people who are calling up don't have any experience of living in debt. In fact, this is their first experience of being made unemployed in their life, their first experience of having to deal with life in debt. And so people are seeking help sooner, and actually that journey out can be easier in some ways because they're asking for help sooner, but it can be harder in other ways because they haven't developed the skills and tools. And going back to some of these tools we're talking about today, it's great to see financial education being built in as part of what's being done here, so that people are learning as they make their journey back into kind of financial management and into kind of financial sustainability for the future as well. So yeah, it's definitely a difficult challenge, but really want to commend you guys as well for selecting 2 challenges around both jobs and finances, because I can really see how important those 2 things together are going to be over the next few years as we work our way out of and in response to the pandemic.
Thank you. And anybody else, any kind of observations on the change in circumstance for many people due to COVID, and perhaps what the next kind of year looks like for a lot of those people, and how the tools might become useful in that instance?
Yeah, Carmel, I just wanted to pick up actually on what Ed was talking about in terms of financial education, which is so important right now, particularly given COVID-19. Obviously at MAPS, we're coordinating the UK strategy for financial well-being. As part of that, we want to see more children and young people getting a meaningful financial education by 2030, alongside, fewer people using higher cost credit, more people saving, more people planning for the future, etc. And I think one of the things about COVID-19 and sort of what's been quite unique about it is that there are lots of children and young people at the moment who may actually be seeing sort of unhelpful financial norms being reinforced in the home, where, for example, they may have seen family unemployment, going through housing crises, etc., or they may have just seen, debt and insolvency, etc., within the family and within the home, and that has really adverse impact on their learning environment as well, which would impact on the way that they learn and engage with money and sort of their attitudes and sort of their confidence when it comes to money as well. So one of the really important things to think about going forward is how do we ensure that these children and young people are equipped with the right sort of skills in the future to sort of manage crises and sort of make sure that they can do something about the effects of the pandemic as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I think a lot of the tools, as well as their kind of primary offer, they also are backed up by that kind of financial education piece. I know Hasty in particular has rolled out an education piece to younger users. Turn to Us has lots and lots of resources available. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of kind of education alongside the kind of practical, how can we help people to access the money they need right now kind of pieces. So we've got the three tools, and we have an understanding of where our audiences and the kind of end users are at. So what do you think is the best way to kind of reach these audiences and engage with the target audiences around now? Emmanuel, perhaps you've got some examples of or something to say about how we can reach out and engage people and find them perhaps where they are, rather than people having to come to us or to find a tool.
Yeah, I think it's so important what you said about finding people where they are. I think a lot of the time when it comes to this type of thing, the funding is there. We've got the charities, we've got the causes, but people don't know about it. And if you don't know about it, how can you access it? I think it's really important, especially if we are looking at young people, to really engage on social media. And I know we are used to doing, content in a way, but influencers, engaging with influencers, not just big corporates, but actually looking at influencers, looking at the type of people who you're trying to help, and look at who are they watching, who are they speaking to, who do they take influence from, who will they listen to, and engage with those people to spread your message, because we can see that how powerful social media is, and people spend a lot more time on that than maybe watching television or so forth. So yes, it might be great to do an advert for TV, but are your audience actually watching television, or are they on YouTube, or are they on social media? So for me, it's about it's great to have the funding, and it's great to have the apps and all of that, but if we are not meeting people where they are, then we're going to see that there's not going to be that much of a take up.
Yeah. And Ed, from your kind of experience with, rolling out programs and engaging people, like thousands and thousands of people through Christians Against Poverty, what kind of things have you seen that have really worked?
Yeah, I think I pick up on what Emmanuel said there, and I guess really reflect the sense around word of mouth being important. And obviously social media is one form of word of mouth, influencers are another form of word of mouth, and at the end of the day, if this thing is something that really works, then people are going to tell people about it. And if it's making a difference in the lives of those who really need it to make a difference in their lives, if they're accessing the emergency funds in those kind of key moments, if they're learning new things about finances and new ways of managing their money, then they are going to talk to people about it. And so I'd really encourage any one of these people in the rapid response group to kind of be engaging with how can we leverage and how can we get the traction from those who are success stories and those who love what we're offering, so that more people can get access to this going forward. And that might be social media, it might be in another kind of way. But yeah, really, really exciting way of kind of engaging with more people is always kind of getting them to be your advocates and getting them to share just how great it is in every single forum they possibly can.
Anything else to add, Phil or Sophia?
Yeah, I was.
Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, obviously, I mean, when it comes to engagement and reach, it's a really important thing to think about if you want to maximize your impact. And I think from our research here at MAPS, we know that the engagement tends to be highest when it comes to financial issues. Engagement tends to be highest when there's sort of a life event or a trigger that's going to change someone's financial situation. That's when you're going to get the highest level of engagement, but also it's sort of like a teachable moment as well, when not only is your engagement going to be high, but you're very likely to have the highest impact as well. And actually at MAPS, we recently ran a savings and credit pathfinder program, which also looked at reach and engagement, particularly of young people. The evaluation report for that's coming out in sort of the next week or so for anyone who is interested. But there's sort of three things, I guess, that I would highlight from that when it comes to reach and engagement. The first is around co-design, sort of designing any tools and interventions with the end user and with the target audience to make sure it really meets their needs. The second, which I saw touched upon and others have touched upon already as well, is around embedding financial well-being provision in existing systems, existing structures, existing channels. And one way to do that is to make use of local community partnerships, partnering with organizations who really know the target audience that you're trying to reach, have established routes to engagement as well. And that's particularly poignant for those people who may be in harder to reach areas as well. And then the final point is around, whilst we want to engage directly with the target audience, actually a good way of reaching and engaging them is actually to work with their network. So those who are already working with that target audience, again, that's a really good way of sort of reaching, and with young people in particular, when it comes to money matters, our research at MAPS shows that lots of them will turn to, for example, their parents and carers, but actually also will turn to, for example, a youth worker or their teacher. So working with their network and those practitioners is a great way, again, of reaching and engaging, particularly young people, but any sort of target audience.
And then, so building on what's just been said, I think that who people are influenced by, who they watch social media, is really important. But I think there's also organisations that they would naturally turn to, and I think that financial services have a responsibility there. At Nationwide, we're mutual, so obviously our members are at the core of what we do. So we have a page on our website that does the signposting, it does the triaging, it makes sure that we can direct people to the right places. I think those partnerships are really important as well.
Yeah, and that's great. And a lot of people in the audience today are actually members of the Rapid Recovery Network, a group of organisations that we've brought together, especially to help, as you say, kind of get into all of the kind of communities up and down the country and make sure that we are getting the tools into the hands of the people that need them most. Great, so we've got the tools, and we've convened a network of organisations. Each of the innovators has got their own scaling plans to reach 10,000 users each by September. So what impact do we think that tools and services, how do we think that they can impact outcomes for individuals? To what extent can they do that for an individual? And then kind of cumulatively, how can that kind of change or shift or shape a system? Phil, I think you might have kind of response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the things we learn about living in financial difficulty is that there's a very fine line between surviving and actually falling into spiraling debt. And anything that can help build people's incomes, help build their resilience, is really important. So, it takes, according to the MAPS criteria, there for those that are financially struggling, it takes one life event to actually trigger people into spiraling debt. So I think this idea of maximising their income, but also smoothing their journey out, are both really important. And I think that in my very simple view, which is society is just the culmination of individual people. And I think that when you have groups of people that can support each other and bring each other out of, or support them through this time, I think that's how you build society.
Thanks. Ed, did you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I'd love to come in on that, because I think the sort of innovative approach that Hasty have taken with smoothing out the income in the way that they have done is fantastic. Really kind of challenges that idea that you have to wait 3 or 4 weeks to actually get access to the money that is rightfully yours. And definitely some of the kind of challenging aspects for people in the UK when managing their money is actually working out how and when money's going to arrive. And I'd love to see the kind of system being challenged in both kind of like money earned from employment, but also through benefits as well. Like some of the benefits, obviously with universal credit, we're moving away from this style of benefits, but kind of paid in kind of unusual rhythms and rates kind of across the kind of weekly period, 4-weekly period, that kind of stuff. And actually, if we can move towards something like this, then it really could change the whole way and whole structure of society and allow people access to be able to perhaps pay for that bus journey to be able to get to the job interview that they really want to get to, or something along those lines. So I can really see some great opportunities for challenging the system and way that we manage our money. And I have to say, I agree very strongly with Phil as well, that kind of whole long-term sustainable future has to come from good sustainable access to income. And so things like Income Max as well really stand out as a great way to kind of help equip people, but also to kind of change the whole system in which we operate.
Awesome, thank you. And Emmanuel, what impact can you see these tools having on the outcomes for individuals?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Ed said in regards to hasty pay. I think it's a really good way, because I think a lot of clients that I see, their first instance will be a payday loan, and we know the type of rates that people are going to pay on that, and actually what they think is going to help them in the short term is actually going to have a larger effect in the long term and leave them in a worse position. So things like hasty pay, I see really helping and challenging and changing the way we think about having to take money or lend money. Also, Income Max in regards to people getting the maximum amount of income that is available to them. I meet people, and when you say benefits, it's almost like a swear word. It's something that people don't want to talk about. People don't want to pay benefits, but they've been paying national insurance for years and never felt bad paying national insurance. And I have to sit down and explain to them that actually you've paid into the system, and now the system is here to help you. That's how it works. And so now having something like Income Max that can help people get the maximum amount of income that they deserve for their situation in things that they may not have heard of, or in systems that they may not know how to understand and use, and break that down using technology, and then turn to us where people can get grants. And you know, the grant system is so much because it's about not having the pressure or worry of having to pay it back. It's about getting money and someone saying, no, look, we want to invest in you. We want to put money in you. And that's so much different when someone says, when you can get a grant and someone says, I believe in your situation, we want to help your situation, not for any benefit to ourselves, but because we want to see change in you. And that empowerment that it gives to my clients and people that I work with now allows them to move forward and wake up in the morning and apply for a job or go for that interview with confidence that they have the financial backing, that they can look after their family, and they can do more than just survive. I think a lot of people during COVID have just been surviving. And I think going back to what Phil said, as a community, as people, I think we should do a bit more to make sure that we may be doing all right, but the people around us are not just surviving. I think that's the type of world I think we want to live in.
Yeah, amazing, bringing those tools alive and reminding us that they're not just tools on a computer, but they're real things that have real impact on the lives of individuals. And Sophia, did you have anything to kind of come in on with that?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything that's been said so far. I think these tools are a fantastic way of supporting people right now. And I think one of the things about them is that they are accessible in multiple formats, and they are reliable and trustworthy. And I think what we hear a lot from young people is that finding money advice or anything to do with finance is really overwhelming. There's just so much out there. They don't know where to go, don't know who to turn to. With these, for example, we've got the one-to-ones or person-centered focus. And I think that's a really valuable thing that these tools have picked up on.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, I'm going to go to the last question in just a moment. I just wondered if any of you had anything that you wanted to say that I hadn't quite teased out yet. Any comments before I go to the last question? That's fine. So my last question. Oh, Phil, go on, go for it.
I just wanted to put a context. I think that we've talked about how COVID has impacted people, and we're thinking about recovery, but also bear in mind that the world is different. COVID has accelerated a lot of change that was happening anyway, but it's accelerated it so quickly that society hasn't had a chance to react and respond yet. There are people moving away from the office means that there are, that's fantastic. We're remote working, and that's probably going to stick for a lot of people. But there are a lot of jobs that support people working in offices, and those jobs are just going to disappear. And we haven't had the time to recover yet to change the nature of the way that the world works. So in some senses, jobs can go back quite quickly, but there are whole swathes of social behaviours that are just going to be different now.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Okay, so kind of final thoughts. We've got the tools, and we understand the networks and the people that need to be reached with these tools. And we've tasked our innovators with scaling over the next 5 months to 10,000 users each. I wondered if you had any kind of piece of advice or single parting word or phrase that you would share with those innovators to help them on their way. Ed, I'll go to you.
I think I'd just echo some of the advice that was given on the jobs panel earlier on today, which is continue on that focus around the digital divide and digital exclusion. Keep simplifying and keep making your products more engaging for more people who perhaps struggle with technology, and find those partners who can help actually get technology provision into people's homes, because it's all well and good making it simple for people. But I heard, I think it was both Kira and Sam on the panel earlier talking about the fact that, actually the access to digital technology, the access to good, stable broadband and Wi-Fi is not a given in these spaces. So build partnership relationships and continue to develop fantastic user experience to really make these products accessible for as many people as possible.
Thank you. And perhaps as well as the innovators, if you had any words to the audience. So in the audience, we've got people from local councils, we've got people who run food banks, we've got LEPs and people from housing associations. If you had any kind of words to say to them on perhaps how to take up these tools and really use them, that would be great. Phil?
I'd echo what Ed just said. I think that partnerships are really key here. And I think that any organisation that has people come to it to ask for help, I think it's kind of beholden to you to make very clear the signposting. And part of that is triaging. People in these situations are actually often quite time poor. What they can't do is spend time trawling through a ton of information. If there's a way of really simplifying the advice in terms of, if this is your situation, go here. If this is your situation, go there. I think that would be a real benefit to these applicants.
And Emmanuel?
I think for me, the big thing is always remember why you do what you do. I think sometimes it becomes so much about internal systems and rules and regulations and corporate partnerships that almost you almost forget the direction of why you're going, and it's always about who you're trying to help and why you're trying to help it. I think we go back to meet people at where they are. I think that's a wonderful message that we should always remember. And then I always say people buy people, so it's really important that even if you've got the best product or the best innovation, make sure that you have the right partnerships, because you might be saying the message, but people might not be want to hear it from you or trust that voice. So it's important to have the right partnership, so the right people are spreading the right message to the people that you want them to listen to. And I think that's so important.
Thank you. And Sophia?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with Emmanuel on the partnerships point, really important. And I think one of the things to think about is how can you embed these tools and these solutions in everyday work that you're already doing in your existing structures and your existing engagement channels. For example, is there a way for you to signpost those who really need these tools to these tools quickly and efficiently? That would just be my one piece of advice.
Yes, that is a great piece of advice. Thank you so much to my lovely panel guests here. That was a really, really lovely conversation. And I think you did a really great job of kind of talking about the tools and helping people make that connection of what impact they can have and how they can be used in such a variety of contexts with many of our audience members here today. So I will sign off now for the panel. So thank you very much. And I'll hand over to my colleague, Andrea Richardson, who will just say some kind of closing remarks. Thank you very much, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carmel. And to all our panelists, speakers, and audience members, thank you all so much. We really appreciate these discussions, and it's really exciting for us knowing that so many of you in the audience are from organizations doing such important work as supporting people in communities facing economic difficulty in the wake of COVID. And we hope that today has given you a better understanding of 6 tools that can help you in this work. So a few next steps. If you want to keep in touch with the challenge, you can head over to our website, rapidrecovery.challenges.org, and sign up to our newsletter. If you haven't already, but would like to join the Rapid Recovery Network or find out more about it, you can visit the network page of our website. And if you are already a member of the network, then watch this space. We'll be in touch very soon with 3 things. So 1, materials and information to make it easy for you to share the tools with your audiences and communities. An invitation to feed into some of the wider learning and related policy report the challenge is producing, and then ways that you can share your ideas and how you might like to engage with any or all of the tools further. But that's all from us for now. So thank you so much, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
What we've seen within the COVID pandemic is that there has been a polarization within the workforce.
Before the pandemic, I was in a retail job that closed down.
It's not really possible for me as a single parent to look for work when I don't know when the schools are going to be back.
It's just helped me gain control back my life. I've already raised my funding.
You can tell they've got connections with organisations who want to employ people with disabilities.
My university showed me this website and I thought, okay, this is great. I can do paid work that will build up my experience.
The app is really good. It's really easy to use. It's practical. It's effective. It's really quick.
There was so much encouragement there to support me, guide me and assist me.
They're a complete lifeline for me after Christmas. I was able to pay off some of my debt and it just made a massive difference.